Lima Oscar Victor Echo, Lima Oscar Victor Echo, Charlie Alpha November, Charlie Alpha November, Sierra Alpha Victor Echo.
Alright, first I want to know, who is Retrophil?
Whoa! Well, that's me. Retrophil is a project, and Retrophil was started in 2011, just after I became 50. In 2010 I was 50, and Retrophil has the idea of recording songs that I have written since I was about 16.
Okay, and what took you so long? Why now?
Well, when I was 16 or 15, we played together, about 4 or 5 of us, in a band in a church hall in Cradley in the West Midlands, and we had a tremendous amount of fun. And some of the songs that we did there, even though they were rough and they were definitely not fit for public consumption at the time, they had something in them that I really liked, and I said to myself, I really want to record these things one day. And I just made a mental note, record the songs, and then suddenly you think to yourself, well, I'm gonna record those songs, I'm gonna record those songs, and then bang, you're 50. And I was thinking to myself, wow, I've got less to go in my life now than I've lived probably, so I better get on and record the songs. So that's how the project started.
Right, so you were the singer, or who were you?
I was the songwriter, and although I've learned to sing a little bit since then, I was not the singer.
You're talking about a band. What was your band called?
The band at that stage was called Fruit Bats, but we only did one gig and that was it, so most of the time we just practiced together.
Okay, so you're always talking about songs. How many songs are there?
From that period of time, there are songs that we recorded on cassette tape in those days, and they're mostly unfinished, they're mostly ideas, so musical sketches you can say. One of the songs that was finished, or mostly finished, was Where Do You Want to Go, which is the first song that I did. And then the other song that was on the way to being finished was Freedom Fighters, which is another song that's available now. It's been finished, been arranged. And one of the things to say there is the drummer that played in those times, he plays on Freedom Fighters, and he also plays on the latest single, No One Left to Cry.
Alright, so is it just him helping, or are you doing this alone with him, or how are you managing to do all the songs?
Okay, well, it started off me on my own. In 2011 I decided to do Where Do You Want to Go, because I had the cassette tape and I more or less copied the drums note for note, but I realised even though the drums on the computer were made to sound as though they're being done by a real drummer, they're still not quite the same as if they're really done by a real drummer. And at the stage when that song came out, the local TV came over and did an interview and asked if I was still in contact with members of the band from that time. And I said, well, not sort of. But I wasn't in contact with the drummer, and Nick, the drummer, was somebody I always liked, and I thought, well, why am I not in contact with Nick, So I phoned home, I asked my mum, and she said, well, I think I can get hold of his mum through the church network. And I was thinking, well, if this works, this will be good. Lo and behold, she did, and I got in contact with Nick, and one of the first questions he asked was, do you remember that song, Freedom Fighters? And I said, funny you should say that, I'm working on it right now. And he said to me, well, I'd love to play on it. And I said, well, I'd love you to play on it. So from that point on, we got back in contact, and it's really been a lot of fun to work with Nick again. And the other thing is, I've met his friend who runs the studio, Chris Smith, and working with the two of them couldn't be better. It's we're really on the same wavelength.
Basically, it's you three who have made these songs, produced them, and are promoting them.
I think the contribution from Nick is definitely the drums, and the contribution from Chris is the bass on No One Left to Cry and the drum production. And what Chris does, he's a wizard with tightening up the timing in the sort of the pre-production phase. So Chris is a real wizard with that, and Nick and Chris would be fully capable of mixing and mastering the songs.
But this is your project.
It's my project, so I did choose to do this myself, and in future that could change, but I just wanted to know how it is to do that. Yeah. So, you know, it's been a lot of fun learning. It's been a struggle, but it's also been a lot of fun.
Okay. And what do you want to achieve with this?
What I want to achieve is that I want to present the songs in a way which I can do now, which I couldn't do then. In those days, it was difficult to get the equipment. It was expensive. We couldn't afford it. We were teenagers, and in those days, the equipment was much more expensive than it is now. To give you an example, today you can buy software for $500 that can do what a studio then could do in those days with hardware equipment, which would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah. So it was completely out of our league in those days. We could not. There was no way we could have done it without the help of a record company, and we weren't good enough at that stage to have a record company. We just had ideas, but our ideas were original ideas, and I at least think they were good ideas. Yeah, and that's why I made the promise to myself I will record some of these as songs sometime in my life.
So you believed in your ideas?
I certainly did. Yes, I did. And I still do.
So you've come a long way these 3 years, I think, and it wasn't all easy, I guess. So what was the most difficult part of your story?
Well, the first song, Where Do You Want to Go, when I started this in 2011, I didn't find the recording of the parts too difficult because during the day my profession is an electronic engineer, and it was simply a question of getting a good microphone, getting good instruments, playing correctly, setting the level, and there you have it. But I came to a dead stop when I got all the parts recorded, and then was confronted with mixing, and then I suddenly realised there's more to mixing than I knew about, and so it took a long time to get over that hurdle. First of all, I had to redesign the room. The room is not too bad acoustically, but it wasn't good enough for mixing. So I had to do things like check the placement, get correct monitor speakers, and do baffling for the room. And if anybody wants to do this themselves, I can really recommend that they get hold of an acoustic engineer, get the room simulated, buy yourself a reference microphone and take measurements. It'll give you some peace of mind that the room's roughly right, and the rest you simply have to do by ear. But if you do that, then you can get the room ready for mixing. So that's the first stage, and then the second thing is knowing how to mix, and that's mixing is a religion where there are many beliefs and many recipes on how you should mix, and it took me a while to find a recipe, or at least a method that I was happy with to start with. Yeah, and I think mixing's really developing and will develop with me. It's not an easy thing, and the requirement is that it sounds good to somebody listening. That's the ultimate goal, and there are a lot of elements that go into that. So it's certainly not an easy process. It's an iterative process, and it's a process of comparison as well. So that was something that I really had to learn. I did hundreds of hours of tutorials for that, and I attended quite a few courses on mixing until I got to the stage where I was even happy that I'd achieved a minimum, not a maximum, but a minimum. So that was one of the toughest things that I've learned so far. But it was a lot of fun, but it was a struggle.
Right. So as you said, you're still developing. You have still projects to come. So what do you think the future holds for you?
Well, yeah, you're right there. I have a lot of songs. Well, a lot. I have songs that are in different stages of being written. Some songs have music, some lyrics have music, some don't, just lyrics. And I also have ideas in my head. And one of the things that this project was trying to do, or is trying to do, is to showcase those ideas in a way which we couldn't do in those days. And some of the songs come from them, and some of the songs have come from since then. No One Left to Cry, for example, that was written in about 1989 and was actually an acoustic guitar piece with vocals, and played live a few times. And and then a few people asked me actually if I would record it, so that's the reason why that one got recorded. And then as I was recording it, I got more and more ideas on how it should sound for a sort of studio version. And there are many songs that I still have that are in the same sort of vein. They're acoustic versions, just acoustic guitar and vocals, which could then be developed into something else.
Okay, and as you said, you'd like some fans. That would be nice. A lot or just some. But anyway,
it's not up to me to say how many fans I should have. Yeah, fans. That's a reaction to what is being put out. So, and although this started off as just me, now there are a few other people involved. So it would be nice, of course, if we get positive feedback, and we have had initial positive feedback, particularly from the Facebook site. We've got 800 likes for the link to iTunes.
You have support there.
So yeah, we've got the first positive echo, which is about, you know, what we can expect with what we're doing at the moment.
Do you have any messages to these people who are supporting you?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.